To be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museums will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
MisFitNation, the MisFitNation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the MisFitNation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Sunday after dinner show with the MisFitNation. We are coming to you live from North Carolina, Fayetteville, once again, 1 year later, same exact room I was in last time. As fate will have it, I got the same room. Even though I didn't pick it this time, I got it. So welcome to the Misfit Nation. Thank you for taking some of your time tonight to hang out with us. I know you could be doing many other things, watching Copa, the Copa Championship tonight, 2024, but you can catch the end of it after us. We're more important right now. As we start, I'm looking at the end of the watch list right now. We have yet another police officer we lost, police officer Matthew Bowen from the Vacaville Police Department in California. So let's keep him in our thoughts and prayers, and his family. Keep them all in our thoughts and prayers so that maybe they can get through this hard time right now and see the light as we propel them on our show here tonight. And I'm going to bring in Lacey here from the Tuesday Crew, since he's out here in Fayetteville too. Lacey, what's going on?
Not much. It's hot down here.
Yes, it is. It's very hot. I mean, we come from a hot area, but I think this one takes the cake right here.
I tell you, yeah.
So.
Yes, it was very, very hot.
Tonight we have a pretty good guest, Jake, and I'll read them in, then I'll let you do the rest of it after that, okay?
Okay.
Awesome. Our next guest has enjoyed an interesting life. As a successful criminal trial lawyer, a meditation teacher, a professor and mindfulness coordinator at Elon University, who studied under Hua Ching Ni, a 72-generation master from the Shaolin Temple, and married a Bible literalist. He started writing his book as a Rosetta Stone and a love offering for his wife and him to discuss the nature of the universe. It has become a healing vehicle for many that presents the teachings of Jesus in a broader interfaith light. So without further ado, let's welcome Bob Martin to the Misfit Nation. Welcome, Bob.
Happy to be here.
It's awesome to have you here. I'll let Jake take over a little bit here.
Wait, actually, let me just change that. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. It's an honor to have you. Thank you for coming on this evening. Rich gave a little bit about you. First of all, I'd like to welcome you to the show. And like I said, Rich gave a little bit about you. Won't you kind of fill in the blanks and tell us, start whenever you from wherever you want to what got us to this point in time right now?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, one of the problems with living 74 years is that your story gets to be longer and longer every year that you live. So I don't want to take up 74 years worth of time, but let me say a couple of things because of the Misfit Nation, because I'm on this show. That is something that I just want to share even before I get into myself. My brother's a Marine. He's 8 years older than I am. I remember the day that he chose to be a Marine. We were living in Miami. He was sitting on the kitchen counter. He got in an argument with my dad, and he goes, "Well, I'm going to go join the Marines." And he jumped down, and my father was spitting and fuming, and he went out, and he did. And this was during the Vietnam era. So he's 8 years older than me. He's 82 years now. And although I'm his younger brother, there are times when I need to take care of him. He was hospitalized. He had some COPD things, so he's at the VA hospital in Miami. And I brought him, when I heard he was hospitalized, I flew down from North Carolina and picked him up and met him at the front and drove him home. And he had to go back the next day for a checkup. So I walked him in, and that was the first time that I ever walked into a VA hospital. And I gotta tell you guys, it just blew me away. The camaraderie and the respect, I mean, it's an old place. The Miami VA hospital is an old building, and it shows its age. But there was something that was about it that just blew me away. But when we walked into the lobby, there was a sign, a wooden sign that was hanging over the lobby, and on it was inscribed, "This is where you see the cost of liberty." And it just blew me away. So thank you for your show, and thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.
We'd be honored if your brother is up to wit to come share his story with the Misfit Nation, because we don't have a lot of Vietnam vets that are still willing to talk about it or have ever talked about what they've done over there, especially as a young Ura Marine. He was a young man over there. It'd be great to hear some of those stories and share it with the Misfit Nation, and that way it's there forever as well.
Yeah, I'll certainly talk to him.
Yes,
about
that would be a great show.
Yeah. And he's quite an interesting guy. He's not very technologically astute, so I'll get these phone calls from him that start out with, I can't hear anything. Okay, John, what are we talking about here? It doesn't play. There's nothing coming out. Are we talking about the CD player? Are we talking about the speaker? Are we talking about, the speaker. I said, well, did you charge it? And he goes, charge it? So it's interesting. Anyway, so how did I get here? I've had some things that have come into my life that have kind of taken over and put me in a different direction. And I was a football player in college, and I had a career-ending injury. And in 1969, if you're not a jock, then either you're going to be one of two things. You're either going to be a soldier or you're going to be a hippie. And I became a hippie. I was, there was this fellow that was in my life, a guy named John Berman. And we used to be arguing over, the Vietnam War was going on. My brother was over there. So it was something that was very personal to me. And I was arguing about it. And and he kept telling me, John, my friend, not my brother, kept telling me, you should be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer. And I go, yeah, sure. My whole ambition was to sell enough hot dogs on the boardwalk in Queens, Rockaway's Playland, to last me through the winter so I could take 7 months off. That was my whole ambition for life. I want to sell enough hot dogs in the summer to take the winter off. And he kept telling me I should be a lawyer, and I kept telling him to go fly. And one day he goes out, and we don't see him for a couple of weeks. He comes back, he's got a ticket. He's got a postal money order for $350 made out to the Educational Testing Service, which was the entrance fee to the law school aptitude test. And he says, you should be a lawyer, go take this test. And how do you say no to that, right? So John was a heroin addict, and we pulled him out of shooting galleries in Harlem a couple of times. But when I got admitted to law school, he went straight. And I was going to be I don't know, maybe this is a reference that's a little bit too old for you guys, but I was going to be Perry Mason, and he was going to be my Paul Drake. I was going to be the lawyer, and he was going to be my investigator. So he went to school to become a private investigator at Miami-Dade Community College. And he stayed with me, and he was my sidekick for all those years that I was in law school, and all through the time that I took the bar. Finally, on the day I got sworn in, I was given a job in the district attorney's office in Miami. Janet Reno, maybe a name that you may be familiar with, was my boss. And 3 days later, I come up from court, and my secretary tells me, do you know this guy named John Berman? I go, yeah, well, the Miami Beach police called. He's dead.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he had met this girl, and they decided to shoot up, and he didn't realize that 3 years clean meant a lower tolerance, and he just OD'd. So that gave a little bit of push and meaning to my life. How often does somebody kind of come into your life and make a difference like that, and when his work's done, he just checks out? Mm-hmm. I worked in the DA's office for a while, and we hit the mob up for a good amount of money. And then I went out in private practice, and they came to my office 2 weeks after I hung my shingle out. And they go, you got to be pretty good to hit us for that much money. We want to send you some clients. So I became a mob lawyer, in effect, for the next few years. And I was going out with these guys and playing around a lot, doing some stuff I shouldn't have been doing. And my life was kind of going south, so I was seeing a therapist. And I came to this real big point in my life where I had to make a decision about which way to go. So I asked my therapist, what should I do? And he pulled out a bag with some coins, threw the coins, and I'm thinking, I'm paying this guy $65 an hour. What is going on here? And he's making some lines on a piece of paper. Finally, he comes, writes a number down, 62. He opens up a book to chapter 62, and he shows me it, and the name of the chapter is Retreat. And so what do? You curse him out, right? Because you paid him $65 an hour to throw coins about your life. And I thought about it, though, and it was what I needed to do. So I pulled my ass together, and I didn't go and remortgage my house, and I didn't dig the hole any deeper. I pulled myself out of it, and turned out that my therapist, you mentioned him before, Master Watching Ni. Think about this, 72nd generations handed from father to son to father to son, being a master monk at the Shaolin Temple. You know, that's Kung Fu, Tai Chi, all that stuff. And this guy was just amazing, and he was the English, my therapist was the English language editor for Master Ni. So all of a sudden, somebody was showing me a way. They were showing me an operating system for living. They were giving me an owner's manual for how to live life. And I didn't have to believe in any kind of spirit or heaven or hell or anything else. Just do the next right thing. Just do the next right thing, and the future will take care of itself. And I studied under Master Ni for 8 years, and then I had to leave Miami. I had a little conflict with my clients, and we all thought it was better that I leave Miami. So I moved to North. Yeah.
Probably safer.
Yeah, well, it was. Well, no, you know, those guys were very, very. They had a lot of integrity. I mean, we had a very solid deal about what I would do and what I wouldn't do, and they kept to their bargain. They never asked me until his son got arrested, and then there was no saying no to him. So I moved to North Carolina, and after that, my life was all about public service. And so I took care of a lot of folks, and a lot of the folks that I took care of were indigent, and a lot of those folks were veterans. And I represented them in criminal cases. But come around a few years later, I just felt that there was something missing, especially, you know, I wouldn't say especially the vets, but certainly there was this revolving door where people would come, you know, I put it this way, I would be assigned a case, and somebody would come into my presence, and I would have this little bit of time to be with this person, and I would be able to like fix their legal problem as best as it could be fixed. You know, didn't mean they wouldn't go to jail, but I would represent them, and they would go off, and then I would see them get out and then get in trouble again and come through the cycle again. I'm going, I'm not happy with what I'm doing here, because I'm just taking care of the symptoms. I'm not taking care of the disease. So I went back to school, and I got a master's in social work, so that I could really kind of understand things like PTSD and other things on a much deeper level. Went out, I was a therapist for a couple of years, then opened up my law office again, and then I felt I could really take care of my clients, and make a difference. And the good report that I can say, Captain, is that I did. There were a lot of times when later on folks would come and see me and say, you know, you were the first person that ever listened to me. You were the first person that ever stood for me, that stood up for me. And so what I learned is that there's all kinds of crap that we can do in life. But what we really need is we need somebody to listen, just to listen and to be with somebody without getting so, we get so uncomfortable with other people's suffering that we want to move away from it. Like, we don't know what to say, we don't know how to be. But if you can just be with it, if you can just be with, somebody's pain, that's all that's necessary. And just that, you could do all the talking. Funny, one of my teachers once told me, there's nothing that I can teach you with words, but we're going to do a lot of talking. I'm sure you guys heard stuff like that too, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff, right? You can't learn it with words, but you do a lot of talking. And anyway, so I started to see some changes, and then I got into my meditation practice, and eventually became certified as a meditation teacher and started teaching meditation at Elon. So that's my story. I'm sticking with it.
Awesome.
All right.
That's a journey right there.
Yeah, that is a journey, and
Yes,
really appreciate what you're doing to help veterans. And we see it where we're at. So many veterans, they get in trouble, they go to court, and it's like, nobody knows the core of their problem, and they're trained to respond in a certain way, and if you respond that way in the civilian world, it's not always the best thing to do, and you got to understand why they did that. And if you can explain that to the court system, I'm not going to say that they'll go easier, but it might kind of help them out a little bit.
And there's also, I feel like I'm not talking inside my area of comfort here, because you guys know about what happens when people get discharged a lot more than I do. But having said that, I have just heard a lot of stories about how folks feel when they leave the service. Forgotten, uncared for, unheard, unlistened. Now, I'm not saying that happens to everybody, because the ones that can adapt and the ones that have the internal strength to be able, to find their new sources of strength, they do fine, and they don't need, my help. I just come into contact with the ones that come into the criminal justice system, or the therapy system, and those are people that are struggling. And so, I may have a jaundiced view of how folks are, because I only hear from that one population, but I've heard a lot of stories.
I can tell you that every veteran goes through a wave when you get out. You can go back to when your brother came home from Vietnam, and that generation they came home to, basically, we don't want you here, you're a baby killer, blah, blah, blah. You're not welcome. And a lot of them weren't really welcomed home until, I'd say, maybe 10 years ago. We started actually welcoming Vietnam veterans home. Veterans of today, they get out, you lose that sense of purpose. And the ones you meet and the ones you don't meet, they're all one decision away from meeting you. So everyone has that one decision they make that could make that left turn to wind up in your office and asking you to maybe get them out and maybe get them that day in vet court, that regular court, so they can go through some other process, not to have something on the record and maybe come out on the other side in the light. So it's always that one decision, change everyone's life.
It is. Can I tell you a story about one particular that I represented?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
So he saw a lot of action, and I mean, if there was any diagnosis that probably fit the bill, it was his multiple diagnoses, and he was arrested for having a couple of lids of marijuana, and all he wanted to do was get his disability check at the end of the month, and go buy a couple ounces of pot and go home and smoke it all month. That was it. I mean, he didn't want to bother anybody, you know. And so one day he goes out and he buys his stuff, and that's a felony amount. So he's driving home, and he gets a ticket, and sure enough, he gets popped for the felony amount of marijuana. Now, nobody wants to put somebody in jail for a couple ounces of marijuana. I mean, nobody wants to put anybody in jail for that. It's stupid. So he goes before the judge, and what do they do? Of course, you know, they put him on probation. Okay, so he says, okay. So life goes on. A couple of weeks later, probation officer knocks on his door, says, you know, piss in the cup, and gets dirty urine. So now he's got a probation violation. So I'm back in court with him. Judge J.B. Allen, who particularly hated it when somebody came back to court for the same thing that they left court for. It was his particular bad thing. So his face gets red when he finds out that, you know, he gave a dirty urine. So he, you know, leans over and says, I'm gonna put you on intensive probation. So I'll call him Joey. Joey says to me, what's that mean, Mr. Martin? I said, well, that means that, you know, you're going to get more visits from the probation officer and you can't go out as much. He goes, well, that's okay. I don't like to go out that much anyways. Well, a couple of weeks later, he gives another dirty urine. Uh-oh. So now he's back before J.B. Allen again. And J.B. Allen is now getting red-faced. He leans over. He points at him. He says, you know, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put you on house arrest. So Joey says to me, what's that mean? It means that you can't leave your house. And he goes, oh, that's okay. Wasn't much of a punishment anyway. So along comes another cup and another dirty urine, and this time J.B. Allen is just livid. I mean, his face is red, and he's spitting, and I decided that, you know, I just wanted to stand up for this guy, and I figured, you know, the truth is our only defense, and I basically said to the judge, all he wants to do is sit at home and smoke his pot. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to bother anybody. He's not out there robbing. He's not out there doing this. He's not out there raping. All he wants to do is sit at home, be left alone, you know, smoke his pot and da-da-da. And I just felt like I wanted to stand up for this guy. And so, you know, I argued my heart out, and J.B. Allen is looking there, and his face is red. But he's got this little bit of a smile on his face. And he leans over and points at me, and he goes, Mr. Martin, you know what I'm going to do to your client? I said, Judge, what? He says, I am going to, what was the word he used? Hold on. Not unfortunately. I'm going to terminate his probation unsuccessfully. That's what. I'm going to terminate his probation unsuccessfully. And Joey says to me, what's that mean? I said, that means we need to leave the courtroom like right now before he changes his mind. We get outside, and I explained to him that it's all over. He takes this real deep breath, and he goes, Mr. Martin, you know what that smells like? I said, what's that smell like, Joe? He goes, that smells like freedom. So
Outstanding.
So that's that sense, and you know, I'm sorry to go on and on, but when I retired to devote myself to meditation and teaching it, I retired from, you know, from the court system, and there was this one judge who was a visiting judge from Greensboro, came over once in a while. Anyway, I got a handwritten letter from him. And he and I had done nothing but butt heads most of the time. Although, you know, there was this kind of like respect. And I opened up the letter, and it was just one line and a scribble signature, and all it said was, thank you. Thank you for your service.
That's all it takes.
I knew that my brother, you know, had served, and I always said that was something that, you know, I would never be able to lay claim to. But that letter, it meant and means, it rephrased how I looked at the last 20 years of my life. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get weepy on you.
That's all right.
Oh, hey, that's perfectly fine. It happens from time to time on this show, and it could be the guest, it could be us. It happens. And yes, thank you for your public service. I personally don't see. You said you started out working for the district attorney. I don't see how. I don't think I could flip sides. You know what I mean?
That's a common question. Mostly people say, how can you represent those people? Is the way that they phrase it. Like, how can you represent a child abuser? And like, so here's the answer, is that as a prosecutor and as a police officer, I enforce the law. You break the law, I enforce it. You get arrested and you have to pay the consequences for it. As a defense attorney, I enforce the Constitution.
Okay.
I'm the person, and I'm the only person that stands in between the police power of the state and your freedom. Because if it wasn't for a good and active and caring defense bar who is willing to give people a good and vigorous defense, then what the state would do is start cutting corners, not crossing T's, not dotting I's. And when that happens, innocent people get arrested and they get convicted. So I keep them straight. Basically, I say, if you want to get my guy, maybe you got the evidence to get my guy, and maybe you're going to get him, but you're going to come through me.
Okay.
Okay, you're going to come through me. And if you get him, then you got him according to the law, and you got according to his rights. And I stood up, and we often, Racehorse Haynes put it this way: we are the trustees of justice and the grantors of freedom. So,
I like that definition. I never really. I know that a defense attorney is there to ensure that their client gets a fair and impartial trial. But I never looked at it as that you're making sure that the Constitution is adhered to. And that's a big one.
it is a big one. Yeah, it is a big one.
So, Bob, as you transitioned into meditation as a teacher, as a student, and then as a teacher as well, did you find yourself actually helping those who you were defending before, or people like that, or just a wide variety of people?
No, it was the same. It was the same people, but I found that in meditation, you get to understand yourself much better, and you get to understand that we all are much more alike than we think we're different. So because you understand yourself a lot better, you can understand where people are coming from, and you have a deeper ability to listen. And it kind of goes back to that listening thing. When, as a meditator, when I sit with a client, that client feels like I'm there with them. I'm not just clicking time on my time clock and checking off the 15-minute charge, but I'm there with them, and it makes a difference. Maybe we ought to chat a little bit about what meditation is and what it's not.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. So a lot of people think that meditation is something about quieting the mind, or having peace, or like la la, tinkle tinkle, emptying the mind. And most people, when they have that idea of what meditation is, they'll sit down, say, okay, I'm going to try to meditate. And they'll last like 30 seconds, and they go, oh, I can't do this. This is crazy. I can't do this. I get all these thoughts. I can't stop the thoughts. But this is when you get to say, to a student, whoa, wait a minute. You are meditating. They go, what? I said, you just saw your thoughts. You noticed your thoughts. You looked at your thoughts. Have you ever really sat and looked at your thoughts before? Well, no. Well, that's meditation. You're doing it. So what meditation is, it's about noticing the crazy flow of thoughts that goes through our head. Like, what am I having for dinner? And did I remember to bring the milk home? And what that son of a bitch said to me yesterday? And what I'm going to do to him tomorrow? And, all of those kind of, like, one thought comes up, it bubbles up, and then it bubbles away, and another thought comes up and bubbles away. And that's just how the brain works. And so when you meditate, you really just step back a little bit from being caught up in your thoughts to sitting back and watching your thoughts. And so it's a process that you go through, but just think about how cool this would be. And I can tell you that this is true for me. And one of the coolest things that I think about, being a meditator, is that I can be angry. And even while I'm angry, I can be in another place watching myself be angry. I can be sad, and I can be in another place that's not sad, watching myself be sad. And so I can be in those two places at the same time. So I get to live, and I get to be completely wrapped up in the total experience of life and all of its goodness and badness and its joy and its suffering and its trouble and its heartache and its ecstasy. I can experience all of those things and at the same time be a little bit distanced from it so that I can kind of watch myself doing it, and that gives me the ability to kind of evaluate, kind of like a training officer at the same time, I'm watching you do this particular exercise, and what I'm going to say to you is, if you moved your knee a little bit more to the right, you'd find that you have a little bit more leverage here, like that. So you get to be that with your thinking. So, like, you could be in a situation, and you handle it a certain way, and then afterwards, since you were watching yourself handle it, you're completely present and aware of what you did and what was said and how you handled it, so you can, have the conversation with yourself without being judgmental, without beating yourself up. Was that the best way that I could have handled that? Maybe I could have done that, or maybe if I had a little patience. If I had just let him talk himself out a little bit longer, he would have got to the point and we would have avoided all. So you have that ability to make all these kind of like slight adjustments to what you're doing in life. And it really is like giving you more of a say in the matter of your own life. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which is one of the big therapies used, especially in PTSD, it's all about something happens and then you have a thought. And that thought, it's like here and it's gone in a second. It's boom, boom. But it leaves you with a feeling, an emotion. It leaves you feeling angry. And I mean, I'll ask you guys, you've all had the experience, right, where something happened and then you found yourself angry about it or sad about it or distressed about it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And if you really can think back, there was some thought that you had in response to what happened that created that anger. There was something like somebody's walking with their pants down around their butt, showing their underwear, right? And you have a thought, what an unruly, rude, person that is. And that leaves you with a feeling of dislike for this person, and then maybe something happens and a result of that feeling of dislike, you act in a certain way, which might not be the most helpful way to act. But if you had caught that thought, if you had caught the thought that you had about it, then you could always ask yourself, was that a really helpful thought? Was that maybe there's a different way of thinking about it that's better. And so meditation is a process of gaining those skills of being able to emotionally detach while at the same time being emotionally involved and having the ability to kind of check and balance yourself. So when you're talking about, cognitive behavioral therapy, if it teaches you to look at the thought that causes the emotion, meditation teaches you how to look at thoughts. It's the skill of actually watching thoughts. And so between the two of those things, it like turbocharges therapy. I'm not saying that meditation can take the place of therapy, but it turbocharges therapy. It makes it 10 times more powerful. So that's kind of like where I work.
That's pretty awesome. I like that you explained that meditation doesn't have to be in a dark, quiet room.
Oh.
It's you and your thoughts and doing things. I think when I was going through my journey from hitting the wall PTSD or hitting the wall transitioning out of the military, my favorite time was running in the woods. I'm running and I'm out there with myself in my mind. There's other people there, but they're there. There's figureheads there. I would just go and I'd clear my brain and just go, and that's my happy moments. Me and Jake, whenever we're on these trips we go on, we try to do little walkabouts. We'll see if we can get some of them in here, but depending on the heat factors, but we'll try to get them in. You got to do what you got to do to keep your mind straight.
Meditation's not, the only, jogging, walkabouts, there's 1,000 different ways. But it all comes when you're doing your walkabouts, and like a lot of times you're noticing, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're touching, what your body feels like, where you're getting tired, when you're getting out of breath. You're noticing all these things, about what's happening to you. And that's just bringing you into this moment. So it's all good.
Rich was talking about going on a walkabout and doing all that. I find myself, I have about 30 acres and I've got to mow it all. And that's my time to meditate. I don't have to think about, nobody's grading if I keep my line straight or whatever. And I can some of the rabbit holes my mind goes down. And sometimes I get back and problems that I've been having are resolved. When you're sitting on a tractor for 8 or 10 hours, you can figure a lot of stuff out.
That's right. Well, that you are exactly doing, because meditation, when I give instructions, I say, let's form an intention to put your attention on your breath. All right? And then as soon as you try to do that, then your mind goes off and it wanders in all these different directions. But then you notice that your mind wandered and you gently pull it back to watching your breath again. But what you're doing is exactly the same thing. You're watching your mowing. You have made an intention to watch what you're doing. But when you do that, your mind wanders and it goes down this rabbit hole and that rabbit hole. And at some point, you remind yourself, oh yeah, I was intending to watch what I was doing. So you bring yourself back to it, and then it runs off again, and you bring yourself back to it, and it runs off again. Well, that is the process of meditation. That absolutely is it. That's all it is. So you're an expert meditator already.
Hashtag winning.
Now, if I was teaching you, right, if you were my student, I would move you at this point onto stage 2. And stage 2 is when your mind wanders and you notice that it's wandered, and you notice that you're going down a rabbit hole or you're thinking about this, that, or the other thing, then what you try to do is give that kind of thought a label. Like a label would be, oh, I'm reminiscing, or oh, I'm projecting, or oh, I'm betting. Like, you know, I bet that guy's never gonna, I'm betting, or I'm gonna get that guy, I'm revenging. So you start to come up with a list of labels that you can start putting your thoughts in, and the net effect, that's also a skill, but I suggest you try that, start coming up with a list, and if you can't come up with a label, just give it the label thinking. Okay, I'm thinking. But then eventually you'll come up with a list, and what happens is it kind of like is like cleaning off your desk and organizing your desk. And then what happens, you'll start notice, oh, here comes that projecting thought again. Oh, here comes that thought again. And then you start notice that you have the same thoughts over and over and over. And what happens is everybody tries to stop thinking things, and you can't. It's impossible to stop thinking things. But if you do think of the same thing over and over, and you notice that you think about it over and over, what happens is your brain, which is kind of like a little bratty boy, you know, that doesn't want to, it's very undisciplined, it's going to say, oh, well, this is no fun anymore because every time I do it, he notices it and labels it. So this is no fun. And all of a sudden you notice, I haven't had that thought for a long time. And it just it goes away. So what happens is you start to make a collection of thoughts that you want to have, and the thoughts that you don't want to have magically start to disappear. And over time, you start having the thoughts that you want to have, like being joyful and happy and generous and grateful and all of those things. You start having those thoughts automatically instead of having the piss-offness, anxiety, negativity, you know, judgmental, and all those thoughts. You actually reprogram your brain.
Now, would that be the same as compartmentalization, or is that?
It is kind of compartmentalization with a slightly different feel to it. When you compartmentalize, you're like putting it away so you don't have to think about it. Here, what you're doing is you're kind of putting it in the file drawer, safe in knowing that if you want it, you can get it back. But now I know where it is. It's got a label, and I filed it away, so it's safe. So it's more like organizing your desk rather than trying to build walls.
Okay.
Okay, because compartmentalizing is trying to build walls. You can't build walls. That very, very tough. Very tough. It will come back and bite you.
All right. Got a question here from Marcia 9982. The things that you did in your former chapter are great. The current chapter of meditation teaching is also awesome. Have you had any students come in negative and show you that big aha moment?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. It usually happens in the second to third week.
Wow. Okay.
It's not, have I had some, it's everyone. It's everyone that follows the instructions. I mean, some people will, you know, some people register for a class and never do the homework. There's nothing you can do about that. The way that I teach is I have this I have this app, and I meet once a week, and I give instructions about how to do 2 or 3 different techniques. And on the app, there are guided meditations. And then when you do it, you promise me you're going to do 10 minutes a day. That's it, just 10 minutes a day. And once you do that, you log it. You say, oh, I got nothing out of this meditation because the dog was barking and it distracted me and it pissed me off so much that by the time the bell rang, I didn't meditate at all. You write that in your log. That log comes to my dashboard, and every single morning I will read your log, and I will respond to it and say, wait a minute. Don't be so hard on yourself. Look at all the good stuff. You noticed that the dog distracted you. You noticed that you got angry. You noticed that it affected your perception of time. You noticed this, you noticed that. So you really did a good job. And you get feedback like that every day. And within 4 weeks, there will be a major change that occurs.
Okay.
So, yeah. I've gotten comments like, oh, I just noticed that there's crickets outside my window. Or, oh, I came back from class and I couldn't do my homework because I was so upset, and then I did my 10 minutes and then I could do my homework. Or, oh, I just realized I don't have to do everything. So yeah, all the time. That's why I love what I do.
Yes, it sounds very. Rich and I are both trainers where we instruct, and I always when we're training something technical, we always look for that light bulb moment, and when they start clicking on in the eyes of that is one of the most fulfilling things that you can have. That that's sometimes all the thank you that we need for teaching. Got another question here.
Yeah.
From Allison. Says that Mr. Rich spoke of your book. Can you tell us more about it as we lean towards the final moments of the show?
Well, I think the book that you're talking about is the one that was published, and that's like a whole different story. What happened in that book, as I mentioned, I trained for 8 years under a Taoist master from the Shaolin Temple. So before I was anything else, I was a Taoist and a Buddhist, and then I married my wife, who is a Bible literalist, and she's a saint without any question in any language. She is. And so we were both cool about devoting the resources to somebody else's need, whatever it took. We were cool about all that, but talking about like what our beliefs were was a little bit hard. And so she would start telling me things that they would talk about in church, and I would start thinking, well, that's the same thing that they talked about in chapter 32 of Taoism. And so what I did is I started taking these Chinese, like that Confucius say, Buddha, 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 the kind of pithy Chinese way of saying things. I would take that stuff and put it into Christian biblical language, so that so that I could take the teaching and put it into one of the teachings that came from the Bible, and she would get it immediately. She would get it. And so after that, we were able to have these big, long, deep conversations, about what we believed and how the universe worked. So what that book is a book about interfaith and the sameness of virtue and kindness is the same values throughout the world. But what your question might relate to a little bit more is I have written an ebook that's free, that's entitled "Is Meditation for Me? What it is, what it's not, and how to do it." And it's free. All you have to do is send me an email at bob@awiseandhappylife.com, and I'll send you a copy of the ebook. It's about 40 pages, and it's got a lot of funny memes in it. I believe in being, I believe funny humor is the best way to teach.
Humor is good. I would rather have humor than I would hatefulness.
Yes.
Definitely. Bob, it's you've showed us a lot tonight.
Well,
Very quick, 50 minutes. I think it's because we're all in the same state for This is the first time ever in Misfit Nation history that the host, co-host, and the guest are all in the same state. So thank you for making history with us tonight.
Well, I'm not.
Oh,
Actually,
dang it.
I'm in Costa Rica.
Oh, that's close. It's close to North Carolina. Yeah. Well, never mind. History's not made tonight.
Yeah, right.
We'll take that off the books.
Well, listen, I want
thank
to tell you something. If you guys are training folks, and what kind of folks are you training?
Military.
If you guys are training military folks, you make sure that you send me an email, and I'll send you a copy of the book, and you take a look through it. And if you want to take the course, the next time we have a course that opens up, you guys are in, no charge.
Awesome.
Right on. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, from teacher to teacher.
Thank you.
Well, thank you much.
Okay.
So if you can give the audience just 3 ways they could start their day better tomorrow to have a happier life starting tomorrow, what would it be?
Right. The biggest thing is to always remember that you are not your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. What do we say? We say, I had a thought. Well, who is the I that had the thought? That's who you are. So let's give up trying to get hung up with all of our thoughts and start concentrating on building up the I who had the thoughts. That's 1. 2, tomorrow in the morning when you get up and you see that sunrise, you remember that you are trading a day of your life for whatever you leave in that day. That day's going to come and it's going to be gone. And the only thing that you got to say about is what you leave in it. And you're trading a day of your life for it. And I've got a lot fewer days ahead of me than I got behind me. So they're getting to be much more important every single day. And 2, I don't care about kids. I don't care about wives. They ain't nothing like a dog.
I made friends with a dog that had previously bitten me, I don't know how many times. Today, I found out why she was biting me, and all I did was show her some love, and we're good to go now.
There you go. You know,
Sometimes
you put your best friend and a dog in the trunk of your car, ride around for 5 miles, and when you open the trunk, see which one kisses you.
I love it.
Bob, Jake, this has been great tonight. Thank you again for joining us from Costa Rica. Anytime you want to come back on and talk about any of the topics and share with the Misfit Nation, that'd be great. And if you can get your brother John to jump on to talk about his time as a Marine in the Vietnam theater of conflict, that would be amazing. Like I think I told you early on, we have a whole week in November we do for Veterans Week. You can have one of those nights all to him, so that'd be great to have.
I will certainly talk to him. I'm serious about it. You get that little book and you want to come on. You're in the next class if you want to come. It's 4 weeks, 1 hour a week is all you need. 1 hour to meet with me once a week for an hour on Zoom and 10 minutes of practice a day. That's all it takes.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. You have a good night.
Thank you.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.